Tonight, right after the TV8 News, live at 10.
Weather forecast clearing and cool later tonight with low dropping into the 40s. Tomorrow will be sunny and cool, so will Wednesday. Highs both days in the 60s. Back at 6, now to CBS.
Dramatic testimony about the fate of Americans missing in the Vietnam War. The Bush Quail team reassesses the family values campaign, worried that it may be turning off many voters. And something special, Eye on Your Health, alternative treatments for what ails you. This is the CBS Evening News. Good evening, Dan Rather reporting. Officially, 2,266 Americans are still listed as missing in the Vietnam War. Today, the United States Senate heard top-level testimony that when the United States pulled out in 1973, President Richard Nixon and those under him may have knowingly abandoned at least some POWs. David Martin reports.
A former head of both the Pentagon and CIA today added his name to the growing list of those who believe American POWs were left behind at the end of the Vietnam War.
As of now, that I can come to no other conclusion, Senator.
And
that does not say that there are any life today, mind you.
No.
In 1973, some were left behind.
The belief centers on pilots like Air Force Captain David Herdlicke, seen alive in captivity in Laos but never heard from again. Of 350 Americans listed as missing or captured in Laos, only 9 came home. The Paris Peace Accords, which ended the Vietnam War, required the return of all prisoners. But Laos was not a party to those accords. A recently declassified memo from then Defense Secretary Elliot Richardson to then National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger recommended Laos be told that we know they hold U.S. prisoners. Yet the next day, President Nixon said this on national television.
All of our American POWs are on their way home.
Another former Secretary of Defense said he didn't agree with that.
I think it's hard to make a positive statement like that, and I would never recommend it.
Although it is now clear senior officials had serious doubts about whether all the POWs were coming home, it is not so clear what the Nixon administration could have done about it, given the anti-war sentiment of the time.
There were difficulties then. This nation was not about to go back to war, probably.
A former aide to Kissinger summed up the agonizing choice between peace and a full accounting for American POWs.
On the one hand, you have an agreement. The world, and particularly the American public and Congress, is ecstatic that this war is coming to an end. Do you hold up the entire agreement, say stop the withdrawals, resume the bombing, in order to get better satisfaction on that?
Kissinger, the man who secretly negotiated the Paris Peace Accords, is scheduled to testify tomorrow. Former President Nixon has not yet told the committee if and when he will testify. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
The United States and Russia are still searching for possible American POWs inside the former Soviet Union. Today, the top American on the commission said he's getting impatient. Malcolm Toon said he wants what he does not yet have, a clear statement from the Russian government that no live American is being held on Russian soil. In the U.S. presidential campaign, President Bush, again today, hammered away at Governor Bill Clinton's draft record. Governor Clinton fired back that the Bush Quail team not only is trying to duck a debate, they are also trying to duck what he called the real issue in the campaign, namely the economy. One issue the Bush Quail campaign does seem to be backing away from now is the, quote, family values issue. For instance, the vice president's new approach to the Murphy-Brown controversy. Susan Spencer has details.
Knowing that Murphy-Brown is about to let fly, Vice President Quayle seemed delighted today to chance into a single mother who actually liked him.
You know how Hollywood is. They sit there and they just can take what you say and misinterpret and distort it.
While insisting he never blasted single moms, the vice president seems to wish he'd never heard of Murphy-Brown.
They tell me that I should never have brought this issue up in the first place. Well, I think it's important to talk about traditional values.
But many Republicans now acknowledge not in ways that divide or alienate moderate voters, as did some of the speeches at last month's convention, where values were front and center. For Pat Buchanan, a religious war. A few days later, Mr. Bush seemed to wonder which side the Almighty was on.
I was struck by the fact that the other party took words to put together their platform, but left out 3 simple letters, G-O-D.
On the campaign trail now, no more of that. The Republicans tie values to hard-headed economic ideas. But pollsters say it may be a little late.
The Republicans have turned off working women in droves. As we look at the polls today, working women are voting Democratic in the same ways that labor union voters used to vote Democratic 20 years ago. The Republicans have said to working women, we're out of touch with you, we don't represent you, and that's how working women are hearing that message.
So understandably, the vice president has been trying to neutralize the impact of tonight's expected lampooning by doing things that might otherwise seem quite silly. He sent the imaginary baby Brown a present, a stuffed elephant, and a handwritten note saying, "It is important to me that you know the respect and personal understanding I have for single mothers."
You have to be very careful on this issue of family values, because the fact of the matter is that only 20% of all couples fit the traditional definition of father, mother at home, and 2 children. That means that if you're not careful, you're excluding a whole host of other people.
Excluding voters is not what this ticket needs. So tonight, Mr. Quayle will again try to laugh off his critics by watching Murphy Brown with a group of single mothers. Susan Spencer, CBS News, the White House.
Even among some Democrats, the Democratic nominee, Bill Clinton, has been criticized for over-tailoring his message, trying, as some see it, to keep from alienating voters too much. Richard Threlkeld reports on the Clinton strategy and how it is and is not working.
Even some of Bill Clinton's fans admit the best you can say about his campaign sermons on the stump these days is taste great, less filling.
We believe that you can be pro-business and pro-farmer and pro-labor. We want Republicans, we want independents, we want people who are for Ross Perot, we want everybody. And yes, we do believe you can be pro-family and pro-choice.
With 6 weeks to go till the election and protecting his lead in the polls, Clinton seems determined to try to please all of the people all of the time.
We believe we can protect the environment and promote the economy.
But what's now missing from his message is what George Bush used to call the vision thing, a sense of larger purpose, of painful challenge for Americans in the difficult years ahead.
Clinton himself has said that this is a big election. Well, if it's a big election, let's talk big things instead of just, here are a half dozen programs I'm going to do for you, and sit back and enjoy it.
We've got to stay on message. We have to stay and be aggressive and stay on the attack.
David Wilhelm and other Clinton advisors insist their candidate is talking about the biggest thing of all, the economy, and they plan to try to keep him on message.
When we get up there and talk about the economic plan day after day after day, that may cause some reporters' eyes to glaze over, but it is what people want. They want detailed answers to the problems that they face.
No doubt, but longtime Clinton watchers now search mostly in vain for that Bill Clinton of the primary season, who preached shared sacrifice and mutual responsibility.
I cannot do for you what you will not do for yourselves. It is opportunity plus responsibility. We need a president who both takes responsibility and challenges the American people to change.
Clinton's dogged determination to stay on message has helped keep him ahead of the president in the polls, but it has not especially endeared him to the voters. Even now, only 1 in 3 has a favorable opinion of Clinton, just about the same number who still like George Bush. Richard Threlkeld, CBS News, Little Rock.
Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, questions of hatred, mistrust, and race in America's largest police force. And our special report, Eye on Your Health, where patients turn when conventional treatments don't work.
Over here, Miss Lansbury?
Yes, please. Wow, if I lifted that, I'd need extra strength Bufferin for the aches and pains.
It's strong, huh?
Oh, yes, strongest dosage of aspirin you can buy.
You really believe in Bufferin?
I certainly do.
Shouldn't you discover the strength of Bufferin?
I'm going to get changed. Coffee's right there.
Taster's choice. I'll get it, okay?
Hi. Do you want the lady of the house?
Well,
she's getting changed. Would you like to come in for some coffee?
Savor the sophisticated taste of Taster's Choice.
Who was at the door?
A neighbor. I said you were in the bedroom.
And did you tell him who you are?
He didn't ask. Great coffee.
There is trouble, new trouble, in this country's largest police department. The latest evidence, an unruly demonstration last week here in New York. Some of the protesters made racial remarks, and partly because of that, it is still reverberating. As Giselle Fernandez reports, the problem wasn't calling out the police. They were the police.
It was a show of force on the steps of New York City Hall. 10,000 off-duty cops banded together in protest, fed up and angry with a city they claim doesn't back them up. The demonstration turned ugly. The mayor called them hooligans.
That kind of language, racial slurs, separate and apart from the destruction of property and whatnot, that is why some people have an absence of confidence, or sufficient confidence in the police department.
Observers call the protest a reflection of the nation's largest police force in crisis and a complete breakdown of public trust.
They climbed the very steps of government and felt comfortable to call the mayor of this city a nigger. It's outrageous. If David Duke had a police department, it would look and sound like this group of people who assaulted our census.
The president of the police union says racism is not the issue here. The mayor's plan for an all-civilian board to review police misconduct, he says, is the last straw that sent the force to the streets.
We're charged with that responsibility to risk our lives each and every day, put on a bulletproof vest, and what are we getting for it? Nothing but hatred from the people we're serving.
Like many cities across the nation, New York has been torn by racial unrest. Most recently in Upper Manhattan, when a police shooting ignited nights of riots. Observers say it's not just racism. It's inner-city mistrust of police officers, both black and white.
The tensions can be just as great with minority police officers, confronting neighborhoods in which there's a high incidence of crime and historical distrust.
Experts say putting more police officers directly in the community on a day-to-day basis may be one way to build a better bridge of understanding. The idea is simple, to have officer and citizen feel they're on the same team, not hostile adversaries. Giselle Fernandez, CBS News, New York.
As was the case in Los Angeles earlier this year, a number of people in New York insist that it's only a few police causing the difficulties. Stay here with us now for more of the CBS Evening News. The warning spreading overseas about prospects for a United States of Europe.
Presenting a totally new architecture for the automobile called Cab Forward. The windshield moves dramatically forward. The rear wheels move back. This gives you more room inside. A wider track helps provide more stability and safer handling. Introducing the Chrysler Concorde, the Dodge Intrepid, and the Eagle Vision. Cars that will define automotive design into the next century. In the car business you lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Some days my minor arthritis acts up, and I really feel the pain. I used to take aspirin. Now I've switched to Advil. Advil relieves the pain in my stiff joints. In fact, one Advil is as effective as 2 regular aspirin. And Advil is gentler to my stomach. Maybe that's why doctors recommend Advil for minor arthritis pain, more than any other brand. For my pain, I simply prefer Advil. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
Do you get diarrhea too?
Yes, I get diarrhea. My immediate reaction is, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. I use Kaopectate because it works. Kaopectate stops my diarrhea. I rely on it.
Doctor. Is it right for me?
Habitrol. It's a patch.
You know the patch? Habitrol. You know, Habitrol.
It's a patch.
Habitrol. Habitrol.
Habitrol Nicotine Transdermal System. Available by prescription only.
Thank you, doctor.
Do you have a secret? Don't be so sure. Someone could be looking into your private matters. 48 Hours, Wednesday.
The United States government today applauded France's vote to proceed with European unity. U.S. officials say that a single Europe will be a stronger ally and, eventually at least, a better market for American exports. Some others say unofficially that a united Europe could be trouble for U.S. exports. As Tom Fenton reports tonight, European leaders were shaken by the narrowness of the victory in France, where the Unity Treaty won by a bare 51% of the vote.
It was a cliffhanger right up to the end. The French yes kept alive the European hope of becoming a new superpower, but the razor-thin majority revealed how fragile that hope is.
Le traité d'Union européenne.
A greatly relieved President Mitterrand promised the country Europe would now be able to rival the most powerful nations on earth. The person who campaigned the hardest to keep the treaty on track today predicted Europe will become an economic powerhouse.
We think of Europe as a group of nations that can hold together to have their word equally to your country or to the Japanese. But we don't want to dominate anyone.
One of the campaign themes was that a common European currency would be stronger than the U.S. dollar or the Japanese yen. But that's a long time from now. Last week's turmoil in European financial markets makes the treaty's 1999 deadline for a common currency look overly optimistic. In fact, Europe, in the aftermath of the referendum, seems anything but united. Chancellor Helmut Kohl and the Germans are miffed at the nasty references to Germany's past that surfaced during the campaign. British Prime Minister John Major faces an uphill battle trying to get the treaty approved by Parliament, especially after the pound collapsed last week. 7 other countries have to ratify the treaty before it comes into effect. Pressure is building in Britain and elsewhere for more referendums, but after the near defeat of the treaty here, that's something other governments will try to avoid like the plague. Tom Fenton, CBS News, Paris.
The International Monetary Fund opens its annual meeting tomorrow in Washington. In advance of that meeting, the IMF warned that if governments don't stop spending more than they have, they will do serious damage to the world economy. With that, here is our weekly update on the U.S. national debt. We as a country, you and I and all Americans, now owe nearly $4,036 billion. That's $482 million more than we reported to you last week. Your individual share, this is what every man, woman, and child in the country now owes, $16,143.
You've just poured the milk on your bowl of Kellogg's Crispix when something keeps you from it. Good thing Crispix has a special shape that stands up to milk. So even if you can't get to it right away, Crispix still stays crispy and great tasting.
They're still crispy.
Kellogg's Crispix, the taste that waits for you.
I drink V8 because...
Hey, I think it's good for me. It makes me peppy.
You got your vitamin A, your vitamin C.
I like it because it has those beta-carotenes in it.
What's that word?
Beta-carotenes.
Pardon? Beta what?
You know, beta-carotene.
Muy sabroso.
Call me crazy, but I think it's delicious.
35 calories.
Really?
35?
Yes. It's a kick. I love you.
V8?
V8 keeps me thin.
It's zippy kind of thing, a zippy thing.
Everybody needs some money sometime.
Only Western Union can get money to over 16,000 locations in minutes. Nobody else even comes close. Western Union, the fastest way to send money.
There's a certain itch that's so private, most people will only discuss it with their doctor. Fortunately, now you can get new Anusol HC1 ointment. Over the counter, with the same prescription strength doctors have prescribed most.
Are you wondering about Ross Perot? What's he up to these days? Is he in or out of the race for the White House? We'll ask him tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
What do you do when you have a problem with your health? Well, you could go to a traditional physician, or you could look for an alternative. Rightly or wrongly, more and more Americans are trying what some call New Age medicine. Edie Magnus tells you about it this week in a special series called Eye on Your Health. New Age, New Rage.